7 days had passed since Vorthic's healing, and the news was spreading across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication. On every world, in every space station, beings were talking about the impossible thing that had happened on the Dragon homeworld of PYR Axis. Jake Morrison stood in the Royal Council chamber, watching as dragons from across the planet gathered to see their transformed companion. Vorthic looked nothing like the sick, dying creature they had first encountered. His scales gleamed like black mirrors, his wings were strong and proud, and his eyes held a wisdom that came from understanding both pain and healing. But the most amazing change was in how he used his fire. Instead of the destructive flames that had once burned worlds, Vorthic now breathed a gentle, healing warmth. Dr. Lisa Harper had watched in amazement as he used this fire to heal other dragons who had minor injuries and illnesses. "It's incredible," she told her team as they prepared to leave Paraxis. "His fire doesn't just heal physical wounds anymore. It helps heal emotional pain, too." The other dragons who were carrying guilt about things they had done, his fire helps them forgive themselves. Amy Rodriguez was packing their medical equipment, but she kept stopping to watch Vorthic work with the younger dragons. Look at how they respond to him. They're not afraid anymore. They see him as a healer again, not a destroyer. Dr. Ben Coleman had been studying the biological changes in Vorthic's body. The transformation goes deeper than just getting rid of the plague. His entire physiology has changed. The organs that produced destructive fire have rebuilt themselves to create healing fire instead. That's because his mind changed first, Dr. Nick Stevens explained. When he learned to process his guilt in a healthy way, his body followed. Mind and body are more connected than most people realize. Queen Zareth approached the human team with gratitude shining in her crystal eyes. "I can never repay what you have done," she said. "You didn't just save Vorthic's life, you gave him back his soul." "We were just doing our job," Jake replied, humbly. "Helping those who need healing is what humans do." "But you did more than that," Queen Zareth insisted. "You have given us a gift that will change everything. Watch." She gestured toward Vorthic, who was now surrounded by dragons of all ages. They were sharing their own stories of guilt and regret, and Vorthic was helping them understand how to handle these feelings without being destroyed by them. "He's teaching them what you taught him," Queen Zareth explained. "The knowledge of how to transform guilt into wisdom instead of letting it become poison. This will spread to every dragon in our empire." Dr. Stevens was taking notes on his scanner. "This could revolutionize how we understand and treat psychological trauma across all species. If guilt processed properly becomes a source of strength rather than weakness, it changes everything." As they spoke, a communication signal came through on their ship's radio. Lieutenant Sam Parker called out from the bridge, "Captain, we're getting messages from all across the galaxy. The Galactic Council wants to hold an emergency session to discuss what happened here." Jake wasn't surprised. Word had gotten out about Vorthic's healing, and every species that had refused to help was now asking questions about how the humans had succeeded where they had failed. 3 days later, the same Galactic Council chamber that had seen Queen Zareth's desperate plea was filled again. But this time, the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of fear and reluctance, there was curiosity and amazement. Vorthic himself had come to the council session. His massive form barely fit through the chamber doors, but when he entered, every delegate fell silent. The dragon they had all feared, the destroyer of 17 worlds, moved with a grace and gentleness that left everyone speechless. Ambassador Kethron of the Crystal People was the first to speak. His voice was much quieter than it had been during the first meeting. We owe the humans an apology," he said slowly. "We called them primitive. We laughed at their offer to help. We were wrong." Jake stood to address the assembly. You weren't wrong to be cautious. You were protecting your people from what you thought was a dangerous disease. But what we discovered on Paraxis changes everything we thought we knew about the Void Plague. Dr. Stevens stepped forward to explain their findings. The Void Plague isn't just a disease that affects individuals. Our research shows that it's actually affecting entire civilizations across the galaxy. Every species that experiences guilt, which is every intelligent species, is vulnerable to a slow, gradual infection. Murmurs of concern rippled through the chamber. The robot ambassador's mechanical voice cut through the noise. Explain this. Claim. Our scanners show no signs of plague infection among our people. That's because you've learned to suppress your guilt so completely that you don't even recognize it anymore. Dr. Stevens replied, but it's still there, hidden beneath your logical processes. The plague feeds on suppressed guilt, and it's been growing stronger for generations. Amy Rodriguez shared their medical findings with the assembly. We found traces of the plague in the medical records of every species represented here. It shows up as increased rates of depression, anxiety, and social conflict. Things that seemed like separate problems are actually all symptoms of the same plague. A delegate from the plant people spoke up, her voice rustling like leaves in the wind. Are you saying that the rising rates of mental illness among our young people are caused by this plague? Not caused by it exactly, Dr. Harper explained, but made worse by it. The plague feeds on unprocessed guilt and makes it harder for individuals and societies to heal from trauma. Vorthik himself stepped forward to address the council. When he spoke, his voice was gentle but strong. I lived with this plague for decades. It nearly destroyed me completely. But the humans showed me something that no other species had ever. Taught me that guilt doesn't have to be a poison. It can be medicine instead. How? Asked the delegate from the water people. How do humans process guilt differently than the rest of us? Jake looked around the chamber at all the different species represented there. I think it's because humans have always lived with conflict. We've had wars and disagreements throughout our entire history. We've had to learn how to forgive each other and ourselves, or we would have destroyed our own species long ago. Other species seem to handle guilt by either hiding from it or being consumed by it, Dr. Stevens added. But humans have developed a third option. We feel the guilt fully, accept responsibility for our actions, but then we use that knowledge to make better choices in the future. We don't pretend our mistakes didn't happen, Amy explained. But we also don't let those mistakes define us forever. We learn from them and try to do better. The chamber fell silent as the delegates absorbed this information. Finally, the delegate from the mind readers spoke. You are saying that humans have developed immunity to this plague not through superior technology or stronger bodies, but through superior emotional processing? That's exactly what we're saying, Jake confirmed. And the good news is that emotional processing can be taught and learned. Queen Zareth stepped forward to address the council. I propose that we establish a new institution, a galactic healing center where beings from all species can learn the human approach to processing guilt and trauma. With the humans' permission, of course. Jake looked at his team. They were tired from their ordeal on Paraxis, but he could see the determination in their eyes. They had come to save one dragon, but they had discovered something that could help the entire galaxy. The humans accept, Jake announced. We'll share everything we've learned freely with any species that wants to learn. Ambassador Kethron stood up slowly. I speak for the Crystal Collective when I say that we would be honored to learn from the humans. We have much guilt to process from our history of conquest and colonization. One by one, every delegate in the chamber asked to be included in the program. The Machine Syndicate wanted to learn how to help their artificial intelligences process the guilt they felt when their calculations resulted in harm. The plant people wanted to address the guilt their species felt about consuming other living things for nutrients. Even the proud mind readers admitted they needed help processing the guilt that came from accidentally reading thoughts they weren't supposed to know. Dr. Stevens began making plans immediately. We'll need to train human counselors to work with different species. The basic principles are the same, but the application will need to be adapted for different types of minds. We'll also need to establish healing centers throughout the galaxy, Dr. Harper added. This kind of work can't be done through long-distance communication. It requires personal connection and trust. As the council session ended, Jake realized that their simple mission to help one sick dragon had turned into something much larger. They were about to become teachers to the entire galaxy, showing other species how to heal from centuries of unprocessed trauma and guilt. Vorthik approached the human delegation as they prepared to leave. "Thank you," he said simply. "Not just for healing me, but for showing the galaxy that healing is always possible. What will you do now?" Amy asked. The Great Dragon. Jake had been sneaking down to the caves for 3 days when the ships appeared. He was just finishing changing the creature's bandages when the emergency sirens began wailing across the colony. The deep, bone-shaking sound that the creature made told Jake it heard the sirens too. The golden eyes looked worried, and the creature tried to lift its massive head. "Easy, boy," Jake whispered, gently pressing his hand against the creature's snout. "Stay down. You're still healing." Jake's radio crackled to life. "All personnel report to emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill." Jake looked at the creature one last time. Over the past 3 days, he had learned so much. The creature was definitely intelligent. It had learned to recognize Jake's voice and would make soft rumbling sounds when Jake talked to it. The creature even seemed to understand some basic words, like food and water. Jake had also figured out that the creature was trying to tell him something important. Every time Jake prepared to leave, the creature would make a series of different sounds and point one of its claws toward the cave ceiling. Jake was starting to think the creature was trying to say something about the sky. Now, with emergency sirens blaring, Jake wondered if he was about to find out what that something was. He climbed quickly to the surface and ran toward the main colony building. Other colonists were rushing in the same direction, all looking confused and frightened. Jake could see Helen Clark standing on the building's front steps, holding a communication device and looking up at the sky. Jake followed her gaze and felt his heart stop. 5 massive ships hung in the sky above the colony. They were unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The ships were long and sleek, with curved surfaces that seemed to flow like water. They were dark purple in color, with silver markings that glowed with their own light. Each ship was at least 1 kilometer long. "Listen up, everyone," Helen called out as the colonists gathered around her. "We've made contact with an alien species. They want to talk." A wave of nervous murmuring spread through the crowd. Jake pushed forward to get closer to Helen. "What do they want?" Someone called out. "We don't know yet," Helen replied. "They've requested a meeting with our leadership. Colony Council members report to the meeting hall immediately. Everyone else, return to your quarters and wait for further instructions." Jake didn't go to his quarters. Instead, he hid behind the colony's main power generator, where he could see the meeting hall entrance. He had a feeling this was connected to the creature in the caves, and he needed to know what was happening. An hour later, Jake saw something that made his mouth fall open. A small shuttle had landed near the meeting hall, and figures were walking toward the building. They looked almost human from a distance, but as they got closer, Jake could see the differences. They were tall, maybe 7 feet on average, with skin that had a slight purple tint. Their faces were longer than human faces, with larger eyes and pointed ears. They wore armor that looked like it was made from the same material as their ships, dark purple with glowing silver designs. But what really caught Jake's attention was the way they moved. They walked with the grace and confidence of natural warriors. Even though there were only 5 of them, they moved like they owned the planet. The aliens disappeared into the meeting hall, and Jake had to wait another 2 hours before they came out again. When they did, Helen was walking with them, and she looked very nervous. Jake managed to sneak close enough to hear part of their conversation. "We understand your position," one of the aliens was saying. The voice was female, and there was something about the way she spoke that reminded Jake of royalty. "But our guardian has been missing for many days. We know he crashed somewhere on this world." "As I've explained, Your Majesty," Helen replied, "we've searched everywhere. We haven't found any trace of your guardian." "Stormwing is not just any guardian," the alien queen said. Her voice was getting colder. "He is my personal protector and the greatest warrior in the Zephyrian Empire. If he is on this world, you will find him." Jake's heart began racing. Stormwing. That had to be the creature in the caves. And these aliens, these Zephyrians, were looking for him. "We will continue searching," Helen promised. "But I must ask you to be patient. This is a large planet." The alien queen stopped walking and turned to face Helen directly. Jake could see her clearly now. She was beautiful in an alien way, with silver hair that seemed to move on its own, and eyes that glowed with the same golden light as the creature in the caves. "Patience," the queen said slowly, "is not something my people are known for. Stormwing has been missing for 12 days. If he is injured, he needs help now. If he is—" She paused, and Jake heard pain in her voice. "If he is dead, then I need to know so I can honor his sacrifice properly." "I understand," Helen said. "We'll do everything we can." The queen studied Helen's face for a long moment. "I hope so," she said finally, "because if I discover that you have been lying to me, if I find out that you know where Stormwing is and have chosen not to tell me, then this conversation will end very differently." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The queen's words were delivered calmly, but there was no mistaking the threat behind them. The aliens returned to their shuttle and flew back to their ships. Jake waited until Helen had gone back into the meeting hall before he came out of hiding. His mind was racing with questions and fears. The creature in the caves was Stormwing, the guardian of an alien queen. The Zephyrians were clearly a powerful and dangerous species, and they were getting impatient. Helen and the colony leadership were lying to them, claiming they knew nothing about Stormwing. Jake understood why Helen was scared. The Zephyrians looked like warriors, and their ships were massive. If they decided the humans were enemies, the entire colony could be destroyed in minutes. But Jake also understood something that Helen didn't. Stormwing wasn't just some random alien creature. He was someone important, someone who was loved and missed. The pain in the queen's voice when she talked about him possibly being dead had been real. Jake made his way back to his quarters, but he couldn't sit still. He kept thinking about Stormwing lying alone in the dark cave, probably wondering why his queen hadn't come for him yet. The creature had been trying to tell Jake something about the sky for days. Now Jake realized that Stormwing had been trying to tell him that his people were coming, but his people couldn't find him because the colony leadership was too scared to admit they knew where he was. Jake looked out his window at the alien ships hanging in the sky. He could see smaller ships moving between them, like the aliens were preparing for something. Jake had a bad feeling that the queen's patience was running out faster than Helen realized. That evening, Jake made his usual secret trip to the caves. Stormwing seemed more alert than usual, and when Jake entered the chamber, the creature immediately began making urgent sounds and pointing toward the ceiling. "I know, boy," Jake said softly. "I know they're up there. I saw them today." Stormwing's golden eyes widened, and he made a sound that Jake had never heard before. It was almost like a sob. Jake knelt down next to the creature's massive head. She's looking for you. Your queen. She's really worried about you. Stormwing made another sound, softer this time, and Jake saw something that broke his heart. The great creature was crying. Tears that sparkled like liquid gold were rolling down his scaled cheeks. "Hey, it's okay," Jake said, placing his hand on Stormwing's snout. "We're going to figure this out. I promise." But even as Jake said the words, he wasn't sure how he could keep that promise. The colony leadership would never let him reveal Stormwing's location. They were too afraid of the consequences. Jake spent the rest of the night talking to Stormwing, trying to comfort the lonely creature. But as he walked back to the surface just before dawn, Jake realized that time was running out for everyone. Alien ships were still there, dark shapes against the lightning sky. And Jake had a feeling that when the sun set again, everything would change. Jake couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the tears in Stormwing's golden eyes and the pain in the alien queen's voice. The next morning, he decided to do something he had never done before. He was going to bring someone else to meet Stormwing, Lisa. Park was the colony's head medic, and Jake trusted her more than anyone else. She was smart, kind, and she had taken an oath to help anyone who was hurt, no matter who they were. If anyone would understand Jake's situation, it would be Lisa. Jake found her in the medical bay, checking inventory of supplies. She looked tired and worried, like everyone else in the colony since the alien ships had arrived. "Lisa, I need to talk to you," Jake said, closing the door behind him. "If this is about the aliens, Jake, I don't know any more than you do," Lisa replied without looking up from her clipboard. "It's not about the aliens." "Well, not exactly." Jake took a deep breath. "I need to show you something. But I need you to promise me that you'll keep it secret until I can explain everything." Lisa finally looked at him. She could see the serious expression on his face. "Jake, what's going on?" "Just promise me, Lisa, please." Lisa studied his face for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, I promise." Jake felt relief wash over him. "Meet me at the cave entrance in Sector 7 tonight at midnight, and bring your medical kit." Lisa's eyes widened. "Jake, what have you done? I'll explain everything tonight. Just trust me." That night, Lisa followed Jake down into the crystal caves. She had never been this deep underground before, and Jake could see she was nervous. Her flashlight beams swept back and forth across the tunnel walls as they walked. "Jake, this is crazy," she whispered. "If Helen finds out we're down here, we'll both be in serious trouble." "I know," Jake replied, "but someone needs help, and I can't do it alone anymore." When they reached the main chamber, Jake stopped and turned to Lisa. "Before we go in, I need you to promise me something else. Don't be afraid. He's not going to hurt us." "He?" Lisa asked. "Jake, what exactly are we dealing with here?" Jake didn't answer. Instead, he led her into the chamber and shined his light on Stormwing. Lisa gasped and dropped her medical kit. The sound echoed through the cave, and Stormwing's eyes opened immediately. The creature looked at Jake, then at Lisa, and made a soft questioning sound. "It's okay, boy," Jake said gently. "This is Lisa. She's a friend. She's here to help." Lisa stood, frozen, staring at the massive creature. Stormwing studied her with his intelligent golden eyes, and Lisa could see the same thing that Jake had seen days ago. This wasn't just an animal. This was someone. "My God," Lisa whispered. "Jake, what is this?" "His name is Stormwing," Jake said. "And he's been down here for almost 2 weeks, hurt and alone." Lisa picked up her medical kit with shaking hands. "This is the creature the aliens are looking for, isn't it?" "Yes. And he's dying, Lisa. I've been trying to help him, but I don't know enough about his biology. I need a real doctor." Lisa approached Stormwing slowly. The creature watched her carefully, but didn't seem afraid. When she was close enough, Stormwing lowered his head and made a soft rumbling sound, almost like a cat purring. "Hello, Stormwing," Lisa said softly. "Jake's told me about you." At the sound of his name, Stormwing's eyes brightened. He made a complex series of sounds, and Lisa looked at Jake in amazement. "He's trying to talk to us," she said. "He's been doing that since the first day I found him," Jake explained. "I think he's been trying to tell me about the ships in the sky." Lisa began examining Stormwing's wounds. Some of them were healing well, but others looked infected. She could see where Jake had been trying to help with human medical supplies, but it was clear that Stormwing's body was rejecting some of the treatments. "Jake, some of these wounds are getting worse," Lisa said. "I think his immune system is fighting against the human medications you've been using. What can we do?" Jake asked. Lisa thought for a moment. "We need to find natural alternatives, things that his body won't see as foreign." Over the next several hours, Lisa and Jake worked together to understand Stormwing's condition. They discovered that his body temperature was higher than a human's. His blood was a dark blue color, and his wounds healed differently than human. Wounds would. The most important discovery came when Lisa noticed that Stormwing's scales around his infected wounds had lost their color-changing ability. She realized that the scales weren't just for protection. They were also part of his immune system. "Look at this," Lisa said, shining her light on a section of healthy scales. "Watch what happens when I change the angle of the light." The scales shifted from purple to silver to gold, and Stormwing made a pleased sound. "But over here," Lisa continued, moving her light to an infected area, "the scales are dull and gray. They're not responding to the light." Jake understood immediately. "So if we can get the scales healthy again, his body can fight the infection on its own." "Exactly. But we need to stop using anything artificial. No more synthetic bandages, no. More human antibiotics. We need to find natural materials that his body will accept." Lisa and Jake spent the rest of the night experimenting with different approaches. They tried cleaning Stormwing's wounds with pure water from the cave springs, instead of sterile saline solution. They replaced the synthetic bandages with strips of natural fabric from Jake's spare clothes. The breakthrough came when Lisa remembered something from her medical training. "Jake, some of these cave crystals might have healing properties. I've heard of minerals that can help fight infection." They carefully ground up some of the smaller crystals and mixed them with water to make a paste. When they applied it to one of Stormwing's wounds, the creature made a sound of relief, and his scales began to shimmer faintly. "It's working," Jake said excitedly. "Look, his scales are starting to change color again." Stormwing seemed to understand what they were doing. He held perfectly still while they worked, and he made encouraging sounds when they found treatments that helped Dot as the night wore on. Lisa began to understand the complex way that Stormwing communicated. He used different tones for different meanings, and his scales would shift colors to match his emotions. When he was happy, his scales were bright and shimmering. When he was sad or in pain, they became dull and dark. "Jake, this is incredible," Lisa said as they prepared to leave. "He's not just intelligent, he's emotionally complex." "Look how he responds when we talk to him," Jake nodded. "I think he understands a lot more than we realize. And I think he's been trying to tell us something important about his queen." As if he understood their conversation, Stormwing made a series of sounds and moved his head toward the cave entrance. His scales flashed silver and gold, and his eyes looked urgent. "What is it, boy?" Jake asked. Stormwing repeated the sounds, more urgently this time. Then he did something he had never done before. He lifted his head as high as he could and let out a long, deep call that echoed through the entire cave system. The sound was beautiful and sad at the same time, like a song of longing. Lisa felt tears come to her eyes as she listened. "He's calling to her," she whispered. He's trying to tell his queen where he is. Jake and Lisa looked at each other with the same realization. Stormwing wasn't just physically injured. He was heartbroken from being separated from his queen. He thought she had abandoned him, and the emotional pain was making his physical wounds worse. "We have to do something," Lisa said. "We can't just keep hiding him down here while his queen thinks he's dead." Jake nodded. "But if we tell Helen, she'll panic. She's too scared of the aliens to think clearly." "Then we don't tell Helen," Lisa said firmly. "We find another way." As they climbed back to the surface, both Jake and Lisa were quiet, lost in thought. They had committed themselves to helping Stormwing, but they still didn't know how to reunite him with his queen without putting the entire colony at risk. Above them, the alien ships continued their silent vigil, waiting for answers that the colony leadership was too frightened to give. But in the depths of the crystal caves, Stormwing continued his lonely song, hoping that somewhere in the stars above, his queen could hear him calling. Jake woke up to the sound of his door being kicked open. Security guards rushed into his room, followed by Helen Clark. Her face was red with anger, and her hands were shaking. "Get up, Morrison," she snapped. "We need to talk, now." Jake sat up in his bed, his heart racing. "What's going on?" "Don't play dumb with me," Helen said. "We know about the creature. We know you've been sneaking down to the caves." Jake's blood turned cold. "I don't know what you're talking about. Really?" Helen pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Jake's own voice filled the room, recorded through his radio during one of his visits to Stormwing. "Easy there, big guy. I'm not going to hurt you." Jake closed his eyes. They had been monitoring his radio transmissions. He should have known. "Get dressed," Helen ordered. "The Colony Council wants to see you immediately." 20 minutes later, Jake sat in the council chamber facing 5 very angry people. Helen sat at the center of the table, with Colony Governor Martin Cross to her right. The other council members looked like they wanted to throw Jake out of the nearest airlock. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Martin Cross asked. His voice was quiet, but Jake could hear the fury underneath. "Do you understand that you've put every single person in this colony at risk?" "I was trying to help an injured creature." Jake said, "I didn't think that was a crime." "That creature belongs to the alien queen," Helen said. "The most dangerous warrior in their entire empire. And you've been hiding him from us for 2 weeks." Jake looked around the table at the angry faces. "How long have you known?" "We've suspected for days," Martin admitted. "When the aliens described their guardian, it matched your reports perfectly. We've been monitoring your activities since then." "Then why didn't you stop me?" Jake asked. "Because we needed to know how bad the situation was," Helen said. "We needed to know if the creature was still alive and if it was dangerous. And now we know," Martin said. "The creature is alive, and it's been communicating with you. The aliens will see that as proof that we've been lying to them." Jake felt anger rising in his chest. "So what are you going to do? Just leave him down there to die?" "We're going to turn the creature over to the aliens," Helen said. "Immediately. Maybe if we cooperate now, they'll forgive us for the delay." "You can't do that," Jake said, standing up. "Stormwing is still too weak to be moved. Moving him now could kill him." "Stormwing?" Martin raised his eyebrows. "You named it?" "That's his name," Jake said. "That's what the Queen called him. And he's not an it. He's intelligent. He has feelings. He's been crying because he thinks his queen has abandoned him." The council members looked at each other. Jake could see that some of them were uncomfortable with his words, but they were all too scared to care. "The decision is made," Helen said. "We'll inform the aliens that we've found their guardian. Security teams are already preparing to extract the creature from the caves." "And what about me?" Jake asked. "You're confined to quarters until further notice," Martin said. Consider yourself lucky that we're not throwing you in the brig for disobeying direct orders. Jake was escorted back to his room by 2 security guards. They locked the door behind him and posted themselves outside. Jake sat on his bed and put his head in his hands. He had failed Stormwing. The creature would be dragged from the caves, sick and weak, and handed over to aliens who might punish him for being away so long. But Jake wasn't the only one who had been helping Stormwing. Lisa was still free, and she knew the truth about the creature's condition. Jake activated his emergency communicator, hoping the security team hadn't thought to disable it yet. "Lisa, can you hear me?" "Jake, what's happening?" Lisa's voice came through the device. "I heard they arrested you." "They're going to move Stormwing," Jake said quietly. "They're going to turn him over to the aliens today." "But he's not ready," Lisa said. "His wounds are still healing. The stress of being moved could kill him." "I know. But they won't listen. To me, maybe they'll listen to you. You're a doctor." "I'll try," Lisa said. "But Jake, I think there's something else you should know. I've been monitoring the alien communications. They're not just asking for their guardian anymore. They're demanding him. The Queen has given us until sunset to produce Stormwing, or they'll start scanning the planet themselves." Jake felt his heart sink. "How long do we have?" 6 hours. Lisa said, "Maybe less." "Lisa, I need you to do something for me. Go to the caves. Tell Stormwing what's happening. Let him know that his queen is coming for him. Maybe that will help him stay strong." "Jake, I can't just—" "Please," Jake said. "He trusts you now. He needs to know that someone cares about what happens to him." There was a long pause. Then Lisa said, "Okay, I'll go. And Lisa, be careful. If the security teams catch you down there, they'll arrest you too." "I know. But someone has to look out for him." Jake spent the next few hours pacing his room and listening to the radio chatter. He could hear the security teams preparing for the extraction mission. They were bringing heavy equipment to move Stormwing, and they were talking about using sedatives. To keep him calm, Jake wanted to scream. They were treating Stormwing like a dangerous animal instead of an intelligent being who was scared and hurt. Around noon, Jake heard new voices on the radio. Colony Maintenance Chief Peter Hayes was volunteering to help with the extraction. So was Communications Officer Rachel Stone. Jake realized that word was spreading through the colony about what was happening, and some people were starting to ask questions. "Why are we treating this creature like a prisoner?" Rachel's voice came through the radio. "If it's really the alien queen's guardian, shouldn't we be taking better care of it?" "Orders are orders," came the reply from Security Chief David Park. "We extract the creature and turn it over to the aliens. That's all we need to know." But Jake could hear doubt in David's voice. The security chief had a reputation for being fair and reasonable. Maybe he was starting to question the colony leadership's approach, too. Jake's door chimed, and he heard voices outside. Someone was arguing with the guards. "I need to speak with Jake Morrison," a voice said. It was Lisa, but she sounded different, official. "No one's allowed to see the prisoner," one of the guards replied. "I'm the colony's chief medical officer," Lisa said firmly, "and I'm ordering a medical evaluation of Mr. Morrison before he can be questioned further. Colony regulations require it." Jake heard grumbling from the guards, but they opened the door. Lisa walked in, carrying her medical kit. She looked calm and professional, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. "How are you feeling, Mr. Morrison?" she asked loudly for the guards to hear. Then, more quietly, she added, "He's getting worse, Jake. Stormwing is getting worse." Jake's heart sank. "What do you mean?" Lisa pretended to check his pulse while she whispered, "The stress is affecting his healing. His wounds are opening up again. And Jake, he's not eating. I think he's giving up." "Did you tell him about his queen?" "I tried." But I don't think he believes me. He thinks she's angry with him for being away so long. Jake closed his eyes. Stormwing was dying of a broken heart, and the colony leadership was about to make everything worse by dragging him out of the caves. Lisa, we have to do something, Jake said. I've been thinking about that, Lisa said, and I have an idea. But it's dangerous, and it means disobeying direct orders. What kind of idea? Lisa looked toward the door to make sure the guards weren't listening. Then she leaned closer to Jake. What if we don't wait for the colony leadership? What if we contact the alien queen directly and tell her where Stormwing is? Jake stared at her. That's treason, Lisa. They'll throw us both in prison. Maybe. But it might be the only way to save Stormwing's life. And maybe, if we're honest with the queen, she understands that we were trying to help. Jake thought about it. The plan was insane and dangerous. But it might be their only chance to do right by Stormwing. How would we even contact her? Jake asked. Lisa smiled grimly. Rachel Stone owes me a favor, and she has access to the colony's communication systems. Outside, the sun was beginning to set. Jake could hear the security teams preparing to move out. In a few hours, they would drag Stormwing from his cave and turn him over to aliens who might see him as a failure. Unless Jake and Lisa could find the courage to take a desperate chance. Rachel Stone met Lisa at the communication center just as the sun was setting. The building was almost empty, with most of the staff helping with the extraction mission. Rachel looked nervous but determined. Are you sure about this? Rachel asked, as she activated the long-range communication array. No, Lisa admitted, but I'm sure that what we're doing now is wrong. Rachel's fingers moved quickly over the controls. I'm sending a direct message to the alien flagship. I'm telling them that 2 colony members have important information about their guardian. Lisa felt her heart pounding. In a few minutes, she would be talking directly to the alien queen. If this went wrong, she and Jake would probably spend the rest of their lives in prison. Message sent, Rachel said. Now we wait. They didn't have to wait long. The communication system came alive with an incoming signal from the alien ships. This is Queen Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire, a voice said. The translator made her words sound formal, but Lisa could hear the urgency underneath. You have information about my guardian? Lisa took a deep breath and activated the microphone. Your Majesty, my name is Lisa Park. I'm a doctor with the human colony. We know where Stormwing is. There was a moment of silence. Then the Queen's voice came back, sharp with anger. Your leaders told me they had no knowledge of my guardian's location. Our leaders were afraid, Lisa said honestly. They thought you would blame us for what happened to him. What did happen to him? The Queen demanded. Lisa looked at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly. He's alive, Your Majesty, but he's injured and trapped in caves beneath our colony. We've been taking care of him for 2 weeks. Taking care of him? The Queen's voice changed, becoming confused rather than angry. Explain. He was badly hurt when he crashed here, Lisa said. One of our people found him and has been bringing him food and medical supplies. We've been trying to help him heal. There was another long pause. When the Queen spoke again, her voice was very quiet. Is he ... Is Stormwing well? Lisa felt tears come to her eyes. The love and worry in the Queen's voice was obvious, even through the translator. He's getting better, Your Majesty, but he's very sad. I think he believes you're angry with him for being away so long. Angry? The Queen's voice rose. Why would I be angry with my beloved guardian for being injured while protecting others? He doesn't know that you've been looking for him, Lisa explained. Our leaders wouldn't let us tell you where he was. The Queen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Dr. Park, I want you to take me to Stormwing. Immediately. Your Majesty, Our colony leadership is preparing to move him to you right now. But he's still too weak. Moving him could— No, the Queen said firmly. I will come to him. Prepare a landing site near these caves. I will be there in 1 hour. The communication ended, and Lisa looked at Rachel with wide eyes. What have? We done? The right thing? Rachel said. I hope. Lisa ran back to Jake's quarters. The guards tried to stop her, but she pushed past them. Jake, it's happening. The Queen is coming here. Jake jumped up from his bed. What do you mean she's coming here? I contacted her directly. I told her about Stormwing. She's landing near the caves in 1 hour. Jake felt a mixture of excitement and terror. Lisa, when Helen finds out what you did— I don't care what Helen thinks, Lisa said. Stormwing needs his queen, and his queen needs him. Outside, they could hear shouting and running footsteps. Someone had detected the incoming alien shuttle, and the colony was in chaos. Jake's door burst open again, and Helen Clark stormed in with a full security team. Her face was purple with rage. What did you do? She screamed at Liza. The aliens are landing. They think we've been lying to them. We have been lying to them, Lisa said calmly. And I fixed it. Helen looked like she was going to explode. You've doomed us all. When they find out we've been hiding their guardian, they already know, Jake said. And they're grateful that we've been taking care of him. Helen stared at them both. Grateful? The Queen isn't angry that we found Stormwing, Lisa explained. She's grateful that we've been helping him. She's coming here because she trusts us. Helen looked confused and frightened. She had been so sure that the aliens would see the humans as enemies that she couldn't understand any other possibility. You're all under arrest, she said finally. All of you. But before the security guards could move, Peter Hayes spoke up from the doorway. Actually, Helen, I don't think we have time for arrests right now. Behind Peter, they could see more colonists gathering. Rachel Stone was there, along with Communications Officer Danny Clark and several others. The alien shuttle is landing. Peter continued. And I think we should be there to welcome them properly, instead of hiding like criminals. Helen looked around at the faces of the colonists. She could see that public opinion was turning against her. This is mutiny, she said. No, said Martin Cross, appearing in the doorway. The colony governor looked tired and defeated. This is leadership failure. Mine. Martin stepped into the room. Helen, we've been handling this situation all wrong from the beginning. These people did what we should have done weeks ago. They showed compassion to someone who needed help. Helen stared at Martin in shock. You're siding with them? I'm siding with what's right, Martin said. Jake, Dr. Park, will you take us to meet the alien queen? 20 minutes later, a group of humans stood outside the cave entrance as the alien shuttle landed nearby. Jake's heart was pounding as he watched the elegant craft settle onto the rocky ground. The shuttle door opened, and Queen Veltar stepped out. She was even more impressive in person than she had been during the earlier meeting. She wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, and her silver hair moved in the wind like it was alive. But what struck Jake most was the expression on her face. The proud, dangerous warrior queen was gone. In her place was someone who looked worried and hopeful and scared all at the same time. Dr. Park? The Queen asked, looking at Lisa. Yes, Your Majesty. This is Jake Morrison, the man who found Stormwing and has been caring for him. The Queen turned to Jake, and he felt like he was being studied by someone who could see straight through to his soul. Then, to everyone's amazement, the Queen bowed her head to him. Thank you, she said simply. Thank you for caring for my guardian when I could not. Jake felt his face turn red. I just ... I couldn't leave him there alone. The Queen smiled, and Jake saw that her eyes were filled with tears. That is exactly why I hope to find someone like you. She followed Jake and Lisa down into the caves, with Martin Cross and several other colonists behind them. When they reached the main chamber, the Queen stopped and gasped. Stormwing was lying in the same position where Jake had first found him. But he looked much better. His wounds were healing, and his scales had regained much of their color. When he heard footsteps, he lifted his head and looked toward the entrance. The moment Stormwing saw his queen, everything changed. The great creature let out a sound of pure joy that echoed through the entire cave system. His scales blazed with golden light, and he tried to stand up despite his injuries. "Stormwing," the Queen whispered, rushing to his side. "My brave, beautiful guardian." Jake watched in amazement as the Queen knelt next to Stormwing and gently touched his massive head. The creature made soft, happy sounds and nuzzled against her like a giant cat. The Queen spoke to Stormwing in their own language, and Jake could hear love and relief in every word. Stormwing responded with complex sounds and color changes, and Jake realized they were having a real conversation. Finally, the Queen turned back to the humans. There were tears streaming down her face, but she was smiling. "Stormwing has told me everything," she said. "How Jake found him and stayed with him even when it was dangerous. How Dr. Park helped heal his wounds. How both of them talked to him and comforted him when he thought I had forgotten him." Jake felt confused. "Your Majesty, we didn't know if we were doing the right thing. We were just trying to help." The Queen stood up and faced the group of humans. "That is exactly why you were doing the right thing. And it is exactly why I came here." "I don't understand," Martin Cross said. The Queen smiled. "Stormwing was not lost by accident. He came here on purpose, following my orders. For months, we have been watching your species from a distance, trying to decide if humans were worthy of friendship with the Zephyrian Empire." Jake felt his mouth fall open. "It was a test, not a test of your technology or your military strength," the Queen explained. "A test of your character. Many species we encounter either try to capture and exploit a wounded Zephyrian, or they are too afraid to approach at all. You did neither." She looked directly at Jake. "You saw a being in pain, and you helped, even though it was dangerous and forbidden. That is the mark of a truly civilized species." The Queen gestured to Stormwing, who is now sitting up and looking much stronger. "My guardian has been sending me reports about your kindness for 2 weeks. He told me about your gentleness, your patience, your refusal to give up on him, even when your own leaders ordered you to stay away." Lisa stepped forward. "So you were never really angry with us?" "I was angry with your leaders for lying to me," the Queen admitted. "But I was never angry with those who showed compassion to my guardian. How could I be angry about kindness?"